The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Get more at servingworlds.com. 46. Ashlyn had no control. She was trapped in her mind, ordered silent by the man now looking around the council room as if seeing it for the first time. Never understood why you took this room apart, Ashlyn. Joseph Card waved around at empty walls. To be surrounded by paintings, bound books, priceless art? He swung around. And that rug. Was it a genuine Persian? Tell me where it is. I want it back when this is my office. I never cared enough to ask. Ashlyn told him truthfully, now Card had asked her a direct question. She couldn't have lied if she wanted to, she realized. The override saw to that. The override. She remembered the day Commodore Kagan had stormed into her office with a physical copy of the report printed out just to throw it in her face. She glanced where Kagan sat, struck as silent and still by Vice Admiral Card's commands as the rest of the council members. His left eye was blackening from Joe Card's beating, but he had the same fierce look he wore when he confronted her about the report. She had ordered the override project scrubbed on the spot. Her skin crawled at the idea of anyone made a puppet, a prisoner in their own skin. Now she was the puppet. At first she raged, then felt the terror flick its tongue, but she was too old and had seen too much to waste time on useless emotions. She banished the terror. Getting past the helplessness and dread was harder. She felt those emotions not for herself as much as for her fleet, but she banished them too. She had worked out the method of delivery, the mysterious system update, the one that had installed itself. An unprecedented violation. A betrayal of the host she hadn't thought her implant capable of. Dr. Mentel's work. That soulless genius had a lot to answer for and to undo. Vice Admiral Card was standing beside Kagan now, clapping a hand jovially on his shoulder, looking across at Ashlyn. Sorry about this, Fleet Admiral. You have made miracles come true. You may have saved our species. He sniffed and looked around at the empty walls of the office. But I can't serve a woman who turns her back on the things that make life worth living. I just can't trust you. Creature comforts. Wealth. Preserving the elite. That's all this coup was about. Outside, Ashlyn was placid. Inside, she raged. She wanted to scream. She wanted to race across the room and pummel the Vice Admiral. She could do neither. Not yet. But something would change. She would watch and listen and wait. When that change came, Ashlyn would be ready. Ready? Lee asked by the door. We're good. Frankie's muffled voice told the team through a full-face breather mask grabbed from an emergency cabinet on the supply module's wall. I fooled the alarms by replacing the reduced volume of air in this hall with non-volatiles. It feels the same weight. The alarms are stupid, and we're ready. She wore a brilliant and familiar, self-satisfied smile. That means the air still feels nice and thick when you breathe it. Odds are nobody's even thought about finding an aux supply. She giggled and stamped her feet, proud of herself. But then sobered up. So do it now before people do wise up. What's it like out there? Samin asked. It's enough for a reacher, Frankie promised. You can dance a jig if you have to. Or punch a guy in the face, Willard offered optimistically. Jake thumped his brother-in-law on the back. Yeah, even you get to be a badass today. Frankie stayed behind in the supply module, along with Dr. Mentel, who sat on the ground, her back to the opposite wall as Frankie, with a matching breather serving her earthborn lungs wrapped roughly around her face. The zip ties were back on her wrist, tied to a supply tube on the wall behind her. Lee raised his eyebrows to Noelle, waiting for her to give him the go sign. Noel had been worried Lee wasn't going to take orders well when he requested she take the lead instead of him, but then he'd shown her what he could do. They both knew he was best on their front lines, not back calling the shots. She nodded for him to go ahead, and he unlocked and opened the door. Noel's clothes rustled as the pressure dropped, and then she followed him through. 2 techs were sitting on the floor beside the door. Lee jumped clear of the door to make room for the others to fan out across the hall. But the techs giggled drunkenly at each other, ignoring the new arrivals completely. There was a deck of cards on the floor between them. The tech against the wall screwed up his eyes at his cards, raised his head to his buddy, and slurred, "Go fish." His buddy just fell sideways on the floor. Lee saved the man's head from a high-speed encounter with the metal deck plating, lowering him down slowly. Jake stood beside him, arms crossed and frowning. Willard threaded between them both, nose wrinkled and grinning. Maybe this can go down as a bloodless coup. Or is it a reverse coup? Coup. Lee took the head of the line again. Jake followed behind Willard. "You're cuckoo," he grumbled. Samin and Padalecki were next. Padalecki stopped to pull the hat from the upright tech's head. He didn't even notice. Samin nodded her approval at the private and grabbed a utility belt and bulky imaging sensor gun from beside the snoring tech with his head on the ground. Noel brought up the rear, holding their second assault rifle in the middle of the barrel and whistling. Her artificial lung was chugging along despite the thin air Frankie had filled the compartment with. Funny how things work out, she thought, slapping her chest gratefully for once. Stepping over the sleeping tech, she fervently repeated Willard's wish. She was going with uncoup herself. You have been listening to Reach, The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Music, All This by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Hear more of the story at servingworlds.com. Thank you for listening.